All right, what's up, y'all? It's UFCPAP here. I'm gonna keep this like short and sweet. So, first bet we had this past weekend, we had Uran. We had the spread. He looked good. Boudet was just a bit too heavy. He seemed to kind of just want to hug up against the cage. Doesn't matter. We cashed the plus 3.5, 2.5 units. That was a good one. Next, we had Dione Barbosa to get a finish in rounds 1 or 2, plus 100. We threw 1 unit on that. Hindsight is 2020. We probably should have thrown a couple more units on it. It was an easy win. She made it look effortless. I was a bit worried at first because in the first round, it seemed like she wanted to just stand a majority of the fight or of the round. But when she got that takedown, it was over pretty fast. So, she executed that well. Next, we took Reese McKee. This was his first win in the UFC. He's had some very tough matchups up to this point, but he looked great. He absolutely destroyed Frunza in the first round. He had his eye really swollen. Then he split his lip. Doctor ended up stopping it right before round 2. And we cashed that. That was minus 140. 2.5 units on that. Easy money. Then we took Robert Valentin plus 3.5. Now, this one was a sweat because Torrence Finney did not want to get his arms off this dude. He just wanted to hug him the whole fight. And it was a pretty boring, uneventful fight. But thankfully, third round, Valentin said, nah, we're going to throw down. So, he tried to do what he could. And, he cashed our 2-unit play at plus 135. I loved that one. So, we cashed that. Moving on. Tavares, GM3, fight does not go the distance. I got a bit greedy on this one, so I didn't really know what to play. GM3 is so inconsistent, but he's always a wild card. He can always get that late, finish by submission. So I thought about taking the sub prop, but then I thought, Tavares is a good striker. Unfortunately, he hasn't really looked like a killer lately. He is getting older. He slowed down a bit, but I thought maybe he could find the chin at GM3. Didn't happen, so we did not cash that play. Now, the next pick, super upset in this one because everybody was on Brito to finish Sabatini extremely fast. And, I wasn't sleeping on Sabatini. I thought that if Pat Sabatini could get this fight to the ground, he could submit Brito pretty easily. Unfortunately, it seemed like Sabatini just wanted to lay there in half guard for the entire fight. I think he had 11, 12 minutes of control time. He didn't really look for many submissions. He was just content with holding the position. And, he landed a couple of little pitter patter shots, but nothing major. And that one really screwed us. So we didn't cash the fight to not start round 3 play. We lost a unit and a half there. Then our 2 parlays, if you go ahead and take a look, Brito versus Sabatini under 2.5 was one of the legs, killed that parlay. And then Brito rounds 1 or 2 killed that parlay. So I probably should have, not been so heavy on that fight to not go the distance because our parlays would have cashed. But it is what it is. Now moving on to the last one, Josh Emmett plus 9.5. I was a little worried about this one, but I know Josh Emmett is extremely tough. He's only been finished 1 time in the UFC, and he always has that puncher's power. So I was really looking forward to this fight. I thought it was going to be a bit more exciting than it really was. Lerone Murphy, he played it perfectly. He stuck to his game plan. I can't knock him for that. But Josh Emmett did look good as well. And he cashed the plus 9.5 spread. So 2.5 units at minus 135. We cashed it. We had a profitable weekend. It wasn't much. 1.3 units. Could have been more if Brito, would have been more aggressive, or maybe Sabatini would have been more aggressive and looked for a finish. But it is what it is. This week we have UFC 314. I'm going to be there live in Miami. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to get my picks out early before I leave. If you want to get all of my picks for free, just my Instagram bio, I have a link to my Discord, or just send me a message and I'll hook you up. All right.